Vanderlande, moving your business forward.
Welcome to Baggage 4.0, Rethinking the Role of People in the Airport of Tomorrow. Vanderlande Connect's webinars are dedicated to discussing the latest developments, challenges, solutions to state-of-the-art logistics process automation. My name is Mike Cooper. I'm your host for this event, which comes to you from the Vanderlande headquarters here in the Netherlands. Today's webinar promises to be a fascinating look into the future of baggage handling as machines and humans mix to potentially create a more fulfilling working environment. We'll look into the staffing roles and responsibilities during the automation process, and perhaps peek into the unknown realms where artificial intelligence and humans work together to transform the way that baggage is handled at tomorrow's airports. First of all, I have some practical matters to explain to you. We'd love for you, the audience, to get involved. So there's two things we'd like you to do. We'd first of all like you to ask questions throughout the webinar. We'll have a big Q&A session right at the end. So when your question comes up in your mind, please ask it. You do that by clicking on the top right of your screen. There's a little arrow there. A drop-down menu appears and says, ask a question for staff. If you could type it in there, that would be super. And our people will collect them for the Q&A session. Also, if you do not see your question being answered during the show, don't worry. We have a team who will answer your questions after the show has finished. Without further ado, I would now like to get on and introduce today's first guest, Jessica van Kruisbergen. Jessica van Kruisbergen is an accomplished professional with over 11 years of dedicated service in the aviation industry. She holds a master's degree in aeronautical science from the Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Her diverse background includes roles in airport operations, safety, change management, and procurement, both in the United States and in the Netherlands. As product manager in service solutions at Vanderlande, she plays a pivotal role in developing customer-centric services with a focus on digitally transforming the airport experience. Jessica demonstrates a keen understanding of how operational efficiency and IT business alignment influence the human factor within service teams, shaping their performance and outcomes. Jessica's career is a testament to her commitment to driving excellence and promoting services in the aviation industry, and it's great to have you here today, Jessica. I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you, Mike, for that very kind introduction. Let's start off with first a little bit about Vanderlande. So Vanderlande is global market leader in baggage handling systems. Our solutions are capable of moving over 4 billion pieces of baggage around the world per year. They are active in more than 600 airports, which are in 12 of the top 20. Additional fun fact, over 380 of Vanderlande's security lanes are also installed at checkpoints worldwide. Over the course of history, the evolution of technology has significantly impacted baggage handling operations. To understand the role of the people in the airport of tomorrow, let's look at the baggage handling system of the past and how the nature of those roles and skills have continuously evolved. From the 1960s to the 1980s, human labor was central to the process of baggage handling. Significant physical effort to move bags from check-in to the aircraft were required. The introduction of the Boeing 747 in 1968 made air travel more accessible, efficient and affordable, while also leading to the creation of larger and more complex airports in the decades after. To efficiently manage high commercial volumes, the first automated baggage handling systems were introduced in the 1970s. Technology in this era was very limited, and this mainly consisted of straight line conveyor belts and also a heavy reliance on the sortation of bags with people. Security awareness was initially installed with a focus on hand baggage. With the early acts of terrorism, the introduction of screening processes for hold baggage also became imperative. In the 1980s, the first PLCs revolutionized the sortation processes. And towards the end of the 80s, barcode scanners came to the market with the ability to link passenger data to bag data. Operating and maintaining the baggage handling system in the 1960s and early 1970s was simple and straightforward. Most of the time, it involved just a wrench and a hammer. By the late 1980s, this starts to change completely, requiring people to have more advanced skill sets to adapt to mechanical, electromechanical, and computer technology advancements. We witnessed the evolution of the baggage porter as they transformed into technical operators. These individuals not only continued to provide point-to-point service, but they also became the first line of contact when issues arose. Over time, this role further evolved into that of an electromechanical operator. In this journey, if an electromechanical operator had a little bit more technical knowledge, they would typically continue down the path of becoming a PLC engineer. Those who preferred less technical experience veered towards operational leadership roles. This brings us to the 1990s and 2000s. This is when the industry really began to embrace automation and computerization more widely. The primary goal was to enhance the overall efficiency of the baggage process by automating every step, from check-in to makeup. This transformation aimed to significantly boost throughput and speed in the end-to-end performance to accommodate the growing passenger volume. It also aimed to improve working conditions by reducing the reliance on manual labor. In the 1990s, barcode scanners and hold baggage screening machines were integrated into the BHS as standard practice. The first individual carrier systems, known as ICS, were introduced. One of the first high-speed 6 meter per second ICS systems by Vanderlande was called BagTrax. The next variation of this brought to the market was called TubTrax monobelt. This was more or less a tub on a belt. The twin belt variation of TubTrax shortly followed. TubTrax has evolved into one of our preferred ICS systems today, offering increased intelligence, speed, and efficiency. Lane-based storage concepts were also adopted into the baggage process, and shortly after, crane-based solutions followed to optimize space and streamline operations. The advancements in PLCs were incorporated as a standard controls to accommodate higher speeds and enhanced functionality. There was a shift in decentralizing from cabinets to centralizing locally on the conveyors. As a result, we saw the first emergence of data. Shifting from manual tasks to roles centered on maintenance and supervision, new jobs also became. At key points in the process, dedicated operators like check-in agents and ground handlers could be seen in more abundance. Electromechanical operators broadened their responsibilities by enhancing their engineering expertise and skills. Control room operators also managed the process flow to ensure seamless operations. IT system engineers oversaw bag routing and infrastructure changes as IT became further integrated into the BHS. With this expansion of the O&M team, the implementation of strategic management became imperative, steering the industry towards efficiency and excellence. At this time, most airports were doing the O&M themselves, but the larger and more complex the BHS became, the more tasks started to become outsourced. At the end of 2000s, we witnessed a shift where passenger rates surpassed baggage rates for the very first time. This shift prompted a greater focus on leveraging technology to meet the demands of passenger traffic. Advancements of technology primarily seek to enhance the passenger experience, improve operational performance, scalability, and to also reduce costs. Now more than ever, and to navigate this uncertainty that we have in our world, we must adapt to the evolving changes and challenges in the aviation industry. Despite a disruptive period, a few years ago, passenger volumes are still expected to exponentially grow. This puts more focus on passenger self-service options and to reduce the need for direct human intervention. As a result, airports continue to increase the number of passenger self-service kiosks, but also the development of new web-based applications or phone applications to support the passenger journey. These can include things like off-site baggage pickup or drop-off, or also more advanced live bag tracking. Real-time tracking of luggage has also become more precise with the widespread adoption of radio frequency identification. This industry has been very quick to respond to the challenges of labor shortages and physical strain on workers. To address these issues, we have the integration of lift assist devices and also automated robots. These have gained momentum in being installed, but the adoption still remains questionable. Artificial intelligence and machine learning are also emerging as valuable tools for baggage handling, particularly in the areas of predictive maintenance, digital twin simulations, and AI-driven optimization of the baggage flow. The transition to advanced capabilities driven by digitalization requires an upgrade of skill sets to focus on higher value tasks. Continuous development of skills in data analytics, programming, troubleshooting, also new technical proficiencies in robotics and AVs are required for us to stay at the forefront of innovation. A lot has changed and transformed from labor-intensive to an automated system being designed to take human error out of the picture. However, for some baggage processes, these areas have not changed much at all. These include the makeup and unloading areas as seen in this high-level baggage process. These areas still rely on high manual effort. The future of baggage handling is about achieving more with a leaner workforce and harnessing technology. As we realize Industry 4.0, there's a potential to reduce headcount as technology enables smarter decision-making, creating a different resource profile that blends on-site and advanced remote capabilities. Industry 4.0 involves the advanced application of computers, robots, smart machines, and communication technologies, where all processes are automated and interconnected to share and analyze real-time data. This results in seamless interactions. We're in a time where the role of technology is becoming integrated into everyday life as automation is rapidly evolving and reducing the need for that human intervention. If we look at today's biggest industrial transformations, we can see that at each new stage, it represents how we think about and how we work today. This message emphasizes the adaptability, continuous learning, and the use of technology to improve human capabilities. As demand for more efficient end-to-end baggage processing continues and keeping resource allocation such as staff and space constant, we find ourselves in a threshold of a new era in baggage handling. We like to call this Baggage 4.0. Baggage 4.0 is our vision for sustainable, scalable, automated baggage handling operations, where all bags are delivered on time, every time, with little human intervention. With the right digital solutions and services, along with increased automation and advanced robotics, we will be able to optimize the entire baggage handling process from check-in right through to loading onto the aircraft. By unleashing the power of data-driven decision-making, we will improve the baggage flow, allowing systems and processes to seamlessly work together. In the last webinars, we discussed how predictive maintenance, process optimization, robotic loading, AVs for transporting ULDs to the aircraft, and AI address today's challenges. This combination and the use of all of these technologies will be how we achieve Baggage 4.0. But where does the human sit in all of this? Humans have played a crucial role in adapting to and harnessing the benefits of technology, and must continue to do so to meet the industry's exponential growth. Looking ahead to the airport of tomorrow, this vision instills confidence that with the current workforce collaborating alongside machines, we can aspire to achieve remarkable efficiency and innovation in baggage operations. This raises numerous questions regarding our perception of the human role. Will my job be automated? And what will happen to me if it is? What will my role look like in a human-machine partnership? I will leave it to our next speaker to answer some of those burning questions.
Thanks very much, Jessica, for that excellent introduction to our subject matter. I would just like to encourage the audience once again to ask questions. Click the arrow on the top right of your screen, drop-down menu, ask a question for staff and type it in and send it through. That would be great. Our next speaker, Anna-Sophie Ulfert-Blank, is an assistant professor of organizational behavior and artificial intelligence at Eindhoven University of Technology, where she explores the impact of technology on today's workplaces. Her research centers on the collaborations between humans and technology, especially AI agents and robots in team environments. She's passionate about designing future workplaces that enhance employee well-being and performance by understanding how trust in technology emerges. With a background in organizational psychology, Anne-Sophie combines insights from different disciplines, including human technology interaction and computer science. Prior to joining Eindhoven University of Technology in 2021, she conducted research at several universities in Germany. Currently, she works on numerous national and international research projects exploring the future of human AI collaboration at work. Welcome, Anne-Sophie. Fascinating area of expertise that you have. I'm sure our audience is dying to know what you have to say.
Thank you for the kind introduction. As we're transitioning into Industry 5.0, we need to rethink the human role and how these collaborations will take shape in the future. AI and robotics in airport services, as we just heard, are increasingly becoming the now rather than the future. And as AI is being further developed, it's taking over new roles rather than automating tasks. It's changing its role within organizations, developing from a tool to a teammate, or even a colleague, as the media likes to call it. But what does this mean for organizations and for the employees who work with these systems? And who will benefit from this implementation? If we ask OpenAI's Dolly, Baggage 5.0 will look something like this. And I don't know how I feel about this perspective, but I think there's something we can do about designing better workplaces. But let's start with the benefits of AI. AI offers many benefits to organizations and its employees. And as the technology is developing further, their capabilities are growing in terms of learning and the ability to act autonomously. This allows for alleviating employees of dull, dirty, and dangerous tasks. For example, today, firefighting robots can explore buildings before humans go in to make sure it is safe. But as these learning capabilities are increasing, we need to think about new levels of collaboration that can take place. As AI systems allow for us to work on tasks, for example, in more precision. Or if you've worked with ChatGPT, you can think about examples in your own work life, where, for example, you use it to draft emails that you might not have thought about just a year ago. So there are a lot of new levels of collaboration that can be reached as these technologies develop further. We often speak about extending human skills, but we can also extend machine skills by teaming up AI and humans. For example, we know that AI is very good at processing large amounts of data, or robots that are very good in supporting with their physical strength. But at the same time, humans might remain to be very dexterous, have social or moral standards with which they can evaluate situations, and they might be supportive in their creative abilities. At the airport of the future, AI can fulfill a range of potential tasks and roles, as it comes in many different shapes and sizes. We talked about ChatGPT before, but it can also take the shape of a human or a baggage handling robot. Yet, reaching successful collaboration may be much more difficult than it initially appears. We can imagine that individuals react very differently to these different types of AI or robots. And while the system might be beneficial for one person, it might not be beneficial for the next. Yet AI design and implementation has thus far followed a very technocentric approach, neglecting the central role that humans play in making these collaborations a success. So what we see a lot today is that when AI or robotics are being implemented in organizations, a lot of problems occur. And this can take place at different stages of the implementation, just even before the AI enters the organization. One of the most critical success factors for an AI implementation is whether employees are on board with this. And while we might blame the employee for being resistant to this change, there are a variety of factors that impact whether employees perceive these changes as positive or not. Often it is the degree to which they feel secure about their job, They're not necessarily opposed to the technology itself, but they worry about what happens to them. But it might also be a characteristic of the system that makes a user resistant to using it. Therefore, it's important to analyze the underlying problems that might lead to employee resistance, as it is crucial for the success of the AI implementation, as well as the performance as the collaboration takes place. Employee resistance may also negatively impact employee well-being, for example, increasing stress levels, or having an impact on talent retention. And this is critical as many organizations choose to automate tasks because they have staff shortages. But even as we go forward, and while an AI might be highly accepted, it doesn't mean it's already a solution. In 2023, generative AI in the form of ChatGPT became widespread across the globe in many organizations. And initially, it was hailed as a tool for massive performance increases, and some companies even claimed that it could replace a variety of jobs. Yet as the year moved on, we saw that having a highly competent AI system does not automatically lead to positive performance outcomes, but it is the individuals who use these systems, as well the context in which these collaborations take place, that impact whether it's a success. And this can have negative effects on the individual, but also the organization, as it was exemplified by the case of a US lawyer who claimed, who used false court cases that he received from ChatGPT and filed them to the courts without checking them. In the end, he was sued, and so was his organization. So we see that depending on the individual and the context, a highly capable AI system can lead to low performance outcomes. So I want to encourage you to rethink how we collaborate with AI and the opportunities there are as human-AI collaboration moves forwards. And we should not only stop with thinking about the interaction between the individual and system, but rather think about the larger effect it has on the overall workforce. And this is much more complex than it might seem. In simplified terms, you could think about a human-AI team, where humans have perceptions and evaluations of their team members, whether they're human or AI. But at the same time, and if you ask a computer scientist, they will tell you that so will the AI teammate. They will need these evaluations to make collaboration smooth. But over time, as relationships evolve, this can heavily impact how the collaboration takes place within the organization, especially if these perceptions are negative. While this is highly simplified, we need to consider the dynamics of collaboration further as AI transforms from a tool to a teammate.
So I'm going to interrupt you there, Anna Sophie. Thanks very much, because we're going to ask the audience. This is the second item that we'd like you to help us with. If you could fill in this poll, just to find out where you think you are regarding AI teamwork. How do you think teams will react to the introduction of more AI-based technology? Will teams A, be skeptical or resistant? Teams will welcome it, or teams will need to get used to it? If you could fill in the poll, A, B, or C, and we can find out what you think in a couple of minutes' time. I don't think it's fair to ask you the answer to this poll, because I think you know it already, or at least you have far too much experience. So perhaps I should try and answer the question and see what I would think. I think that teams will be skeptical and resistant is what I would imagine. But then it depends, because I also use ChatGPT myself. So what's your experience of these types of interactions in general, without giving too much away?
Well, as a researcher, I would always say it depends.
It depends. That's not one of the answers, I'm afraid. That's not allowed. Right, we've got a couple. I think the poll is about to be closed, I believe. So if you could please get your mouse and your trackpad, fill in the vote, and then we'll see what our viewers think in general. Here we go. The results are going to come up on the screen. There we go. Skeptical, resistant is 19%. Teams will welcome it, 7%. Teams will need time to get used to it, 74%. What do you think about that?
I think this is very interesting, and I think, as I hinted at in my previous slides, it's a very complex problem to solve. They do need to get used to it, but I think we can take a more active role in directing this change.
Right, on how you implement it.
Exactly.
Right, I'll leave you to get on with the next part of your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So as I just hinted towards, I think that in order to address the complexities of human AI collaboration in organizational settings, we need to focus more strongly on designing future-proof work. And in doing so, we should not only focus on performance outcome, but also on the well-being of the employee and consider the central role that humans play for these types of collaborations. And we already know quite a lot about how systems should be designed to engage users, how jobs can be designed, how we should set up team collaboration, or what employees require in the work context to flourish. But often when it comes to AI implementation, we lack to integrate these different views and to really implement systems in a way that focuses on employee well-being. So how should we move forward? I think we need to think about the dynamics that take place between different characteristics of these collaborations, such as how the roles and tasks are designed, how the system is designed, and the users who will be working with these in designing new forms of collaboration. But let's get into this in more detail. Think to yourself, if you were to work on a human AI team, would you like to be on the first team or the second? I, for myself, have to say I would want to be on the first one. And what we see in the industry is team composition matters. Humans tend to have a preference to be around other humans. Otherwise, they can experience loneliness, boredom, or might outright reject the system. But it can also negatively impact performance outcomes, as we see in research that human AI teams, where the number of humans is quite limited, often perform worse than teams where there are more humans. And this has a lot to do with, for example, uncertainties that employees have when they're on such teams, or a lack of trust that develops from not having any other human within these collaborations. Many researchers agree that to leverage the full potential of human AI collaboration, full automation should not be the goal, as it does not guarantee productivity gains. Rather, we should think beyond how these new collaborations can benefit humans and how can create new tasks and roles for employees. We have extensive knowledge on how different aspects about a technology impact its use, such as levels of transparency, its appearance, etc. But what we should really be asking is, what role should these AI teammates play? And should they be very human-like, taking over the exact same roles as humans, or should they be doing something different, really leveraging on this opportunity of extending human skills? I want to start with an example where you can see how human roles change as AI systems are implemented. Let's imagine an engineer who works in the domain of maintenance, and their prior task might have been inspecting broken parts, developing and delivering solutions. Now, a new and very competent AI system is implemented within the organization, and by smartly communicating with other AI systems or robots, they can take over this complete task from the engineer, leaving the engineer with merely a monitoring task. This reduces the importance of the labor of the engineer, and this devaluation of their job can lead to frustrations, lower motivation, and maybe the engineer ends up quitting. So what should we do about this? I think we need to creatively think about how the skills of this engineer can still be used within the organization, apart from just monitoring a process. Even though they are needed in order to detect, for example, problems, we can imagine as the collaboration goes on, they might become less attentive. So what makes work fulfilling? I think we can direct technology development at work in a very human-centric way by focusing on job design principles that tell us a lot about what makes work fulfilling. For example, we already know that humans have a preference for complex or creative tasks, that they like to use their skills, they want to experience task significance and have decision-making power within their jobs. But also as collaboration continues over time and as AI is increasingly finding its way into organizations, we need to think about how we can support employees further. How do feedback mechanisms take place as I might not have a human colleague anymore? How can we actively involve remaining employees at different stages of the collaboration, before the AI is implemented and while the collaboration takes place? I encourage you to address the implementation of AI as a change process, as organizations go through fundamental change of jobs, tasks, and employees will have certain expectations, fears, as these changes go on. Employee expectations take a very significant role in this context, as it will heavily impact how they perceive the system that is being implemented, as well as the organization as a whole. For example, if employees expect a very futuristic AI that is probably more inspired by science fiction than it is by reality, they might be disappointed to see that the AI system can only predict stock in a supermarket. While this is now focused on the technology itself, I think we need to address a lot of different key points when we think about employee expectations in terms of how they perceive their organization at that moment, their job, etc. And it is these expectations that can make AI implementation a success or a failure. Thus, we should think about AI implementation not as a one-time implementation, but rather as a process that takes place over time. We need to differentiate what we do within these organizations prior to the implementation taking place, considering expectations and requirements by different stakeholder groups. While AI is being implemented, we should think about how we can involve these different stakeholder groups as well as employees, supporting them with technical as well as non-technical training. As we move into phases where these collaborations become more long-term, we need to consider the dynamics that change these collaborations over time and make sure that there is opportunity for continuous evaluation, feedback, and training. Creating fulfilling and meaningful future jobs should be a central goal when implementing AI at work, as neglecting these factors does not only decrease employee well-being, but it can also have negative effects for the performance that comes out of these collaborations, as well as the overall implementation failing. Therefore, I want to encourage you to think of the human side of human AI collaboration and to consider the value of highlighting employee well-being as we're designing these new forms of collaboration. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite Jessica back on stage.
Thanks, Anna-Sophie. Oh, I'm going here. All right. So thank you very much for that quite thought-provocative topic. I think now this leads us to, with all this adoption of new technology, we have these existing old KPIs that are very much focused on the system itself and how it performs. We see availability, missed bag rate, also in-system time being at the forefront of importance for operations. So I think the question that we need to ask ourselves is, do we also need to rethink these KPIs and how that would look like in the future? So with that, I believe we have a poll coming up.
We do indeed.
And here comes Mike.
Hello again. We're all three together now. That's excellent. So we would like to ask you, audience, to join in as well. As baggage handling operations advances with the integration of AI-based technologies, do KPIs need updating? A, yes, they need to change 100%. B, yes, they need to change slightly, and C, no, they don't need to change. Fascinating, this interaction between humans and AI and robots within the workplace, in terms of the working together. And you were saying that the reviews might have to change for employees because they may not have a human colleague.
Well, I wonder if this is a future where we want to go, but
Right.
it's definitely something we should think about as more automation and AI implementations find their way into workspaces.
Right, and then the team composition will be changing, and,
Yeah.
and perhaps also the KPIs then.
Yeah.
Do you have yourself an opinion on the change of the KPIs? Do you think they should change?
Yeah, I think that these ones that we just talked about are always a pretty bit large staple in terms of our operations. But I do see that as we get more advanced technologies in place, we need to be mindful of the people matter.
Right.
So sustainability, not from an environmental perspective, but from a people perspective.
Right, the social part of ESG. Well, let's just see what the audience thinks. We've got the results coming up right now. Yes, they need to change 100%. It says 41%. Yes, they need to change slightly, said 54%, and only 5% think that they do not need to change. So what do you guys think about those results? Does either of you have an opinion on that? It's clear that they need to change, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's actually, I'm quite shocked with it. So many people saying they need to change 100%. So I think that's great. We're already on a start of an evolution of kind of adopting this. And that's what you see as well of we're embodying Industry 4.0, but we're already starting to talk about the next phase. So
right. Okay, excellent. Well, you did well there, audience. I think we can conclude. We would now like to go on to your questions, I'm sure there are plenty of them, as the topic is very hot at the moment. So oh yeah, here we go. I have to lean forward a little bit. Julia asks, what will be the human's role in your baggage 4.0 vision? I suspect that's for you, Jessica.
Yeah, I would say so as well. We don't see the human role being eliminated altogether. So it's very clear, as I also discussed, that yeah, we have a labor shortage issue within this industry, and that's not something we can navigate ourselves around. So for us, it's more about changing that role, changing that mindset to be proactive. Also to understand how we can address our customers before something happens. That's a mind shift, not only for our own employees, but also towards how we're on site and servicing. I think the other aspect is how is it that we can create smarter, more dynamic decision making with the use of technology?
Right, and humans together, I assume.
Yeah.
Right.
But
Thanks.
as minimal as possible.
That's right. Yeah. I presume you don't have anything to add to that specific question, Anna-Sophie? Or?
Well, I think we need broader perspectives on the topic of implementation, not just it as a technological change, but really considering what is the organizational setup in which these changes take place.
Right.
Yeah.
That's key message. No,
Yeah.
Thanks very much to both of you. Another question from Rens. Thanks for sending this in, Rens. To what level is Vanderlande already focusing on digital twin?
Yeah, so we have a very advanced digital service platform where we are developing continuously our services. We also have a nice simulation and emulation tooling that we are now combining with larger data. So we are on the forefront of really a nice immersive digital twin for operations.
Right. Well, I think that answers the question. Thanks a lot. Next question is from Jennifer. Will there be less maintenance activities needed with more AI solutions? So will AI mean less maintenance?
Ooh, shall I go first?
You can go first.
Yeah, so I think what we aim to see and what we see with the introduction of predictive maintenance technologies is we can reduce the amount of planned maintenance activities and also try to eliminate corrective maintenance. So really be in that proactive approach. In general, maintenance needs to happen. We're talking about equipment.
Right.
So equipment will become unhealthy at some point in time and it will need to be serviced.
Right.
And at this moment in time, that's done with a service technician.
Right. So there's still a role for humans out there.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the chance that a robot takes over to service the machine, but
Right.
we're for sure not there.
Right. Absolutely. Thanks
But
for
I'm
that.
curious to
Yeah.
hear what Anna
Oh, I
Sophie
beg
has
your
to
pardon.
say.
Yes. Excuse me.
No, I think maintenance will always be there as long as we work with any kind of technical system. Even the robot will need to have some sort of servicing. But what AI allows us to do is to increase precision. And that, I think, is the biggest change to these tasks. So I think you can be more on point in the maintenance. Yeah.
Right. So it will sharpen the maintenance process, but it won't eliminate the need for maintenance,
Exactly.
I suppose.
Correct.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I have another question from Edwin. Thanks for sending it in, Edwin. So now, how does Vanderlande see the introduction of AI technology for baggage handling?
Yeah, so I think we're trying to widely embrace it. It's going quite quickly, especially in the area of process optimization. So there's a lot that we can do within this space that's the heart of the airport operation, and optimizing the way that bags are flowing or the way that the planning is done. This is definitely the first step for us to take that we are actively involved in,
Right.
incorporating AI and machine learning.
Right. I hope that answers your question. I don't think you'll have anything to add to that one. Okay, thanks. I now have a question from Femke. To what extent do you believe that automation will impact the service offering towards the airports? And can this impact the customer experience?
Yeah, so I will say with this one, first of all, great question. And I think we need to think about this. So on one hand, we have a lot of change from labor. So we have the shift where we also need to be leveraging more remote services. So I think this will allow us to be more competitive, but it also means that we're diversifying our tasks and our presence on site. So how is it that we can do more with less, but also be able to leverage our full capabilities globally?
Right. Anything to add, Anna Sophie?
No, I think what we see at the moment is often it comes down to staff shortages and the disruption to at least the passengers from the receiving end of the service. And
yeah,
I think their AI can be very helpful.
But I won't be. Will I be getting robots asking me telling me what to do within an airport, or is that a bit too early for that?
I would say that it's more of a prompt of what to be able to do.
Yeah, I would ask a system something as a passenger.
Yeah.
And I mean, we already do this when it comes to checking in or dropping off baggage. So I think it's not that far of a step from there.
No, right.
Definitely not.
Understood. I hope that answers your question. Going on to the next one from Deepak. What percentage of mix do you propose from human versus artificial intelligence? I think this might be.
I'm phoning a friend.
yeah.
As a classic researcher, I would say it really depends. So most of the studies that we see done is where we talk about human AI teaming is where the team members have pretty similar roles. And I think if the roles are kind of changed in terms of the humans only responsible for monitoring, it's very hard to split up that task and have more humans involved. But we would need to think about how can we combine different monitoring roles, what other tasks do these individuals do. So I think it's very hard to say a certain percentage is better than another.
Right.
But you need to think about the overall job and whether the humans in the system have any other contact points with other humans. And I think that's the most central aspect. Human
contact within a team is key, but also that the roles within that team are quite possibly going to change in future due to the abilities or lack of abilities of the humans and the AI system.
Yeah, and I mean, we can think about it ourselves during COVID when office buildings were completely empty. We feel lonely and we don't have these partners for exchanging feedback or talking about decision-making processes. So I think the human component is very important there.
I hope that answers. It's not quite an answer, is it? But still, I think we know what the next step might be. Thanks for that question, Deepa. Charles has a question. In what aspect of application does Vanderlande apply artificial AI technology into Vanderlande solutions, for example, for the bag loader stock ease or AGV solutions, including automated baggage unloading and loading? I think that's one for you.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, this area is still quite new in terms of being developed and explored, especially from ULD loading. But in general, this relies heavily on the AI as well as advanced computer machine learning to be able to recognize the bag and a robot essentially playing Tetris, filling a ULD. So these are definitely embedded into our software levels for those processes.
Right, so it's there, and I presume it's going to grow and get more adopted as time progresses.
Yeah, and this is also a key element of having more data. So the more data that we get on these processes, the more that we are learning the behaviors also of the robots themselves, the better and more refined those algorithms, those responses in AI can become.
Right, I hope that answers your question. Nibin has a question. What are the disadvantages of AI in baggage handling? What are the disadvantages of AI in baggage handling?
Yeah, I really like the opposite fact of this question. We always tend to focus on the benefits and the advantages. I think the disadvantages are the adoption. So we see that also with some devices, especially in really antiquated ways. Or what people are used to.
Right.
The other side is, I think, to debunk disadvantages, we would assume there's a lot of resistance in certain things, but sometimes we see an excitement actually where we're not expected. I'm really curious to hear what Anna-Sophie has to say to this. Maybe not specific to baggage handling, but I think disadvantages of including this type of technology.
And actually what we see a lot is there is excitement for new technology by operators, but it is often that fear of being replaced or the fear or uncertainty about what happens to their job that is creating resistance.
Right.
But once the AI system is actually running, what we find is sometimes people like to go back to manual control. They can actively manipulate the system if they feel processes are going too fast for them. They feel exhausted from the higher workload, or they just outright rely on the system too much, as we saw in the case of the lawyer. And I think this is a tricky one as we are moving towards more competent system, that we need to rethink about what happens when people just get a little too comfortable.
Right, and then I suppose it's also to do with what you mentioned in your presentation, that introduction of these processes and AI and technologies is a change process within an organization. So then teams have to be welcomed to their new colleague, the AI, and we all have to get used to one another.
Yeah, and what we often talk about in research is that we need to develop an appropriate relationship with these systems.
An appropriate relationship, right? So
an appropriate level of trust. So we should neither be too distrusting, manipulating systems, but we should also not fully rely on them.
Right, so no advantage, no disadvantage, but appropriate, I think is the answer to that dilemma. Question from David. Will AI influence the training time of new team members? Will it be longer or shorter? New team members and training.
I have no opinion on this, so I think it's all for Anna-Sophie.
And I'll go back to an example that we've all played around with ChatGPT by now. And I think AI offers opportunities for learning, as it might be used as a coach, etc. But it really depends on how the AI is being implemented. If it's a very complex system where it's very hard for the operator to understand what's going on in the background, I can imagine that training can, to some extent, also be more difficult. So it depends on the implementation.
So it depends, I think is the answer.
Yes, I think there's a little bit of a follow-up question here, is that then do you see, from what you've seen in the industries, overall in your research, do you see this collaboration of training happening from the beginning, that actually you're not just having it as a use post-training, but that it's this interrelated process?
It's definitely something that we're working on to get the training into earlier phases of the implementation, even before the AI system is actually on site.
Okay.
So we believe that in terms of employee readiness, you can already start with training, giving employees an understanding of what the system is about, how to handle it, etc. And especially as systems become more smart, the collaboration changes in the sense that I could maybe give speech commands, or the system is actually adaptable to me as an employee. And I think this is something that we still need to learn and that operators need to learn. So definitely, I see the importance of trainings in all phases of these collaborations.
Okay, very
So,
interesting.
yes, thank you. Not longer, not shorter, but earlier probably
Yeah.
would be a good idea. Question from Torsten. Is IT security, good topic, is IT security considered in context of machines, robots and AI to deliver a robust and secure system to customers?
I would imagine so. I think we had a lot of issues that we've seen in terms of using ChatGPT as a society, of not sharing strategic or sensitive information that you wouldn't want to share. So for me, I think this becomes very relevant also in the world where cybersecurity is on heightened awareness.
Yeah, I think IT security is kind of a given around here at Vanderlande anyway.
Yeah.
But I hope that answers your question. Tom has a question. Besides AI and more autonomous robots, how do you see the future of lifting aids in the future of baggage handling? That's been an issue in the Netherlands recently, I believe. So lifting aids.
Yeah, so where we've deployed lifting aids, we've seen that a lot of times they are adopted at first, but then they gradually stop being used just because the handler themselves feel that they can go faster or they are more agile with their movements. But I do think that with these issues that are resulting, or also having more experienced people talk about the physical effects, that there's more adoption with this. Do I think lifting assist devices are perfect? No. I think we still need to understand how better they can be used, what the users really want.
Right.
So that customer-centric approach as well with our users of what will make it easier for you in order to do this.
Right. Right. I suppose it also depends on the physical capabilities of the worker. I can imagine young baggage handlers going, oh, give me that bag, the robot's too slow. But an older guy might say, hold on a sec, I'll just hook it up, and it might take 20 seconds longer.
Absolutely. And I think this is really where you can start diversifying your staffing at the end of the day, where you don't have to profile per se, but you can have a diverse staffing that is able to utilize these devices and also keep your production levels to where they need to be.
Right.
So I think that's a great example of that.
Right. And also it tends to be that young guys won't be thinking about the ergonomics, but they'll get it later down the line, whereas the older people perhaps already know that ergonomics are highly important and that using lifting systems might be advantageous.
Absolutely. And this feedback I've seen in the field be very crucial and critical for younger generations to adopt technology.
Right, right. So mind your back and don't be too over enthusiastic. Oh, we've got the last question. That's always a sad signal. We just get into it and then it's all over. But we've got the final question from Frank. Thanks for sending that in. What is the customer benefit of predictive maintenance when applied at baggage handling systems? A Jessica question, I believe.
I think it's a combination question. Predictive maintenance is a very hot topic in the industry at the moment, and I think it's twofold, or threefold, however we would like to look at it. I think first of all, we can see a lot of efficiency gains. So in terms of our workers, we need to be careful in terms of cost down of removing labor, because we do replace it with more expensive labor. The other side is being able to manage that process, being able to have those predictable operations going into prescriptive operations, changing that mindset so that it can be there. All of these things are advantages for the customer so that in the end, those passengers are always happy, every bag on every plane, every time. I do think that there's probably even more advantages to predictive maintenance. And I strongly believe everyone is in somewhat similar states of figuring out exactly what those are. So I'd be curious what you've seen in other industries and the application of what benefits come out of it.
I mean, in predictive maintenance, the idea behind it is that we can really get ahead of time rather than having, for example, a full outage of a system, which creates a lot of labor in that very moment, large disruptions, etc. And that doesn't only affect the customer, but obviously also the employees who have this additional workload, stress, etc. So thinking ahead with the help of a system and advanced data processing, I think is definitely an advantage. But I like what you said in the sense that we need to think about once predictive maintenance finds its way into these operations, how do the roles and tasks of these operators change? And I think this is where we are not that far yet in terms of really understanding how this can be a benefit for the individual worker.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say from what we've seen with the pilots and explorations that we're having is that we have a lot of focus on, getting these really direct insights. So you take the service technician, you already start to evolve that role. It's not just about inspections anymore. You transfer into something more analytical. The other side is being dedicated to a fixed problem in an area of knowing exactly where to look, potentially what to look at, and how to fix it. So right place, right time, right information instead of that failure happening. We really want to reduce that downtime as best as possible.
Right. So again, roles changing to adapt towards the technology, but and becoming more efficient.
Yeah, and when it comes to the customer operation, this really means the predictable side. So how is it? What's the next step? So your system is operating. We know that it will be available. Maybe we strive for 100%. Is that necessary? Perhaps not. But the system's available. So what's the next step that you can optimize? And that's really down to you as the customer to help us determine that and see how we can achieve what those needs are.
Great way to finish it. I'm afraid we've come to the end. So thank you both very much for your presentation. I think lots of food for thought for our audience. I'll have to wrap up the show now. I'll ask you to leave the stage. Thanks very much. Yeah, we've sadly come to the end. I think we could have discussed, we could go on for a long time with those discussions because it's a fascinating area and in its infancy, I think we all agree. Before I go, I'd like to thank both of our guests very much, Jessica van Kruisberg and Anne-Sophie Ulfert-Blank. Thanks very much to you, our audience, for filling in the polls and asking the questions. That was great. If you'd like to know more about Vanderlande webinars, go to vanderlande.com/events and also contact there to find your local offices. If you could fill in the evaluation form at the end of the webinar, that would be great for us because we'd like to improve the webinars, and any tips that you might have, we can adopt. Also follow Vanderlande on LinkedIn to keep up with the latest developments. That's all from me and the team behind the scenes. Take care and see you next time on Vanderlande Connects.
Vanderlande, moving your business forward.